Hey, what's up guys? My name is Real Ghost. I'm here doing a video for FreeTAKServer on how to properly install FreeTAKServer on a Raspberry Pi. So let's go over a few things for a moment. Why would you want to install FreeTAKServer on a Raspberry Pi? Well, for one, you need FreeTAKServer to be on a machine running 24/7 if you want that machine online 24/7. A Raspberry Pi can pretty much handle anything you want to throw at it when it comes to FTS. So we're just talking about FTS and Raspberry Pis. Now this is a Raspberry Pi 4B with the 4 gig model, and that's what I would suggest. I would not suggest a Raspberry Pi 3 or below. Raspberry Pi 4 gig, or if you want to go even crazier, go with the 8 gigs. That would be even better, but the 4 gig runs just as good, and you don't need anything more than the 4 gig model. And obviously you can see that I have it in this nice little metal chassis that I got. I think this was maybe 10, 15 bucks, and Raspberry Pis have gotten really cheap. Now, why run your own server? Why not run something on something like DigitalOcean, Linode, or Amazon Web Service? Because now you have something that is on-prem, as we call, or on-site, on-premise, that you can control yourself. So if the server goes down, you know where to go and exactly where to start troubleshooting why your server went down and get it back up as soon as possible, so that way connectivity can begin back with all of your users. So putting it on a Raspberry Pi is about full control on a cheap microcomputer that has more than enough to handle everything FTS can do, even when it comes to video streaming. In my personal opinion, I install FTS on Raspberry Pis because I like to have things on-prem. I run a lot of things on-prem. I don't like cloud services because that means if something goes down, I can't go troubleshoot it. So we're gonna go through a Raspberry Pi. What makes a Raspberry Pi even better than on-prem server hosting is that you can actually take the Raspberry Pi with you to different locations, reset the configuration to a different IP address, open up those ports on that network, and you're running on a completely different network at a completely different site, and it fits inside your pocket the size of a credit card, but the thickness of a wallet, but the size of a credit card. And it has all that power inside this little guy. So of course, the things you're going to need to get this set up is a Raspberry Pi 4. Again, I said I will not recommend anything below a Raspberry Pi 4. The 4 gig model will do just fine. So you want a Raspberry Pi 4 gig. You want a minimum of a 32 gigabyte SSD card. I am running a 128 SSD card on here. And you want an enclosure for it. So I opted in for this metal enclosure, so it's not something that's exactly watertight, but you can go pretty crazy. I've seen a lot of people do a lot of crazy things with putting these inside of watertight containers with little battery packs that power them for up to 2 days, with little Wi-Fi routers that come out through the USB and the antenna coming out the other end. Pretty neat project. I've never done one myself, but that's also another reason why you would want to do the Raspberry Pi route, is because it's a server doing everything you need to do just as well as you would with a Linode, DigitalOcean, Amazon Web Service in the power of your hands. Now, when it comes to installing FreeTAKServer on Raspberry Pi, there is a lot of confusion, especially on which OS to install, how to install it, why Zero Touch doesn't work so properly, which some of that documentation has been fixed. Some of the documentation, I understand, for a lot of people is a little difficult to understand, especially if you're not a Linux nerd like I am. So we're gonna rectify that. So we're gonna make a video today basically going over how to install FreeTAKServer on a Raspberry Pi. I volunteered to FTS to help make this video because I basically do nothing but run Raspberry Pis, not just for FTS, but a load of things. So the way we're gonna install FreeTAKServer today, which is gonna be my preferred method, is running Ubuntu 22.04 on the Raspberry Pi, a little $60 microcomputer to do one service and nothing else but that one service. We're gonna get that set up here today, doing my preferred method, running Ubuntu 22.04. So let's get to it.
Okay, so now we're here at my Windows machine, just closing out some stuff. And FTS has some good documentation here on how to set up our Raspberry Pi for FreeTAKServer. So the hardware requirements are a Raspberry Pi with at least 4 gigs of RAM. I'm going to tell you right now that 4 gigs of RAM is way more than enough to be able to run FTS, the web UI, the video checker, the video server, the mobile server, everything. You don't have to go crazy and get the 8 gig model. Don't get a Raspberry Pi 5. Don't spend the money if you're just trying to run FTS on this. Just get the $60 Raspberry Pi 4 gig model. I promise you it's all you need. So it's going to want us to install Ubuntu 22.04 server. So we're going to open up our Raspberry Pi imager. I already have my SD card already installed onto my computer and load it up. So we're going to choose the device. It is a Raspberry Pi 4. We're going to choose the OS. We're going to go down to other general purpose OSs, and we're going to click on Ubuntu. And remember, we want 22.04 server. So you will see Ubuntu desktop 22.04. That's not the one. We do not want a desktop environment. We just want a CLI or command line interface environment. So Ubuntu server 22.04 LTS, that's the 32-bit version. We want the 64-bit version. So Ubuntu server 22.04, that checks out. LTS 64-bit version, cool. So we're going to choose a storage device, which that's my SD card right there. We're going to hit next, and we're going to hit edit settings. So I gave it a host name of tak.local. So that's the host name that we will be connecting to. I also gave a username of tak, and I'm going to give it a password, which I'm going to have to block out because I know that you guys will probably definitely just see that. And then I like to set the local time services. You're going to want to enable SSH and use password authentication. Don't worry about options. Hit save. This is going to apply those OS customization settings. We want to click yes. It's going to reformat the device or the SD card, and it's going to wipe it clean. Are you sure? Yes. And now it's going to install Ubuntu 22.04 server onto that SD card, and then we're going to put it into our Raspberry Pi. So we're going to let this do its writing, and then we are going to get started with the installation of FTS. Okay, so it is just installed the Ubuntu server 22.04 onto the SD card, so we can hit continue and we can eject that SD card and install it into our Raspberry Pi. Okay, I just powered up the Raspberry Pi just using a simple phone charger and a USB-C cable and using a Cat6 cable into the wall. I do want to note, when you're running on-prem servers, especially even if it's on a Raspberry Pi, you don't want those to run off Wi-Fi, especially if it's going to be stationary. You always want them hardwired. You want the cleanest connection possible out to the internet as people connect. You don't want any packet drops or packet loss or anything like that. So make sure it's hardwired. Don't use the Wi-Fi that's built into the Raspberry Pi. Won't be that great. I promise it won't be. So it's hardwired. So while that's booting up, we're going to want to know the IP address of our Raspberry Pi. And in order to do that, we have to get into our router's gateway. Now, how do we do that? Now, on Windows, you can open a command prompt. On Linux, it can just be a terminal. I believe on Mac and Linux, it's ifconfig, but on Windows, it's ipconfig. And we want the default gateway. For my router, it's 192.168.1.1. And we're going to put that into a web browser. We're going to go to network. I run the Unify system, so for you it's going to be a little bit different. For me, I can just go to topology, find that Raspberry Pi, which has not shown up yet, and when that Raspberry Pi does show up on the network, I can get its IP address. And there it is, TAK. So the IP address that my DHCP service gave it was 192.168.1.231. So we can copy that if we want to, because there's multiple ways you can SSH into the Raspberry Pi. So we can open up a command prompt and we could type in SSH. The username was tak at that IP address, or because we gave it a host name, we can go at tak.local. And we'll try to find that. Now, sometimes this doesn't work, and it looked like this time around it didn't work. So it can work sometimes, it doesn't work sometimes. It depends on how many times you've redone this video and how many times you've redone this to make sure the video goes well. So in my case, I'm just going to do it through IP address. It should catch it. Oh, and we're getting connection refused. That's pretty interesting. So let's just take a look back at the gateway, see what's going on there. It's good that we have problems. I like when problems happen when I do tutorial videos, because if you encounter the problems and you don't have to go down in the comments going, hey, I'm having this problem, what's going on? You can actually witness me have the problems myself as well. So it's still saying it's there. It's still saying it has the same IP address. So what we're going to do is we're just going to ping it. So we're going to do a ping tac T, so it does it non-stop until I tell it to stop, and then we're going to ping 192.168.1.231, and we are sending and receiving packets from that Raspberry Pi. So we can hit Control-C to end that, and we can do another SSH tak at tak.local, see if that works. Unfortunately, it's not, so we're going to do it again, tak at 192.168.1.231. and it found it. So now it wants to create an SSH key. We're going to say yes. It's going to want the password that we created, and we're going to type in our password. And now we are in our Raspberry Pi via SSH on its command line. So what we're going to do, the first thing, and you want to do anytime you install any Linux distro, is do a sudo. So run this as root. That's what sudo is, apt update. And then after it finds updates, we're going to want to do a sudo apt upgrade. But we can put this all in one single command by doing and sudo apt upgrade. And when we do a sudo apt upgrade, it's going to ask us, are you sure? Type Y for yes, type N for no. So we're going to tell it beforehand that we want to, yes, we want to type in Y. So we're going to type in TAC Y after upgrade, and we're going to hit enter. It's going to ask for our password because we're running this as root or as sudo, and we're going to enter, and it's going to run that script. Now go get yourself a cup of coffee, go get yourself a beer, do whatever it is that you like to do. This is going to take roughly around 4 to 5 minutes to do, and let it run it and do its thing. And then we'll come right back when it's done. Okay, at some point during the installation, you're going to see pending kernel upgrade. You're just going to want to hit OK. And then from here, you're going to hit OK again. And in just a few minutes, you should finish, and there we go. Now, it's going to want us to also install some other things going on here. So we already did the sudo apt upgrade. It's going to want us to install NetTools. So you're not hacking the matrix here. So just copy and paste every command here. You don't have to look cool trying to type it all in to impress your boyfriend or girlfriend, who, whichever way you go. Just copy and paste it. This should only take a few minutes. And then we're going to want to hit OK as well. Hit OK as well. And then it's going to want you to do an IP address show just to make sure that you have the right IP. I can just tell you from experience doing this multiple times, it's going to grab the correct IP address. So I'm not going to do this. So if you want to do this, you can. And then it just wants you to reboot the system. So I'm going to do a sudo reboot, and it's going to take a few minutes for that to reboot. Okay, so after we're logged back in, you're going to see some documentation here on how to SSH back in. It's a little redundant if you ask me. And then you'll see here, I generally like to update the .ssh/config. I'm going to be honest with you, I do this a lot. There's no reason to do this, so I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to leave it as is. And now we're going to want to install wget and curl. So we're going to just, again, copy and paste this. You're not hacking the matrix. You're not that cool. It's going to ask for the password. Cool. And from there, we can do the zero touch installation. So click here for complete zero touch installation, and it's one simple command that's going to install everything. So this is going to install the FreeTAKServer. This is going to install the web UI. This is going to install the video server. This is going to install the voice mumble server, and it's going to install NodeRed. There are some issues with NodeRed, and I'm going to show you guys how we can fix those NodeRed issues later after talking to some of the devs. But we're going to run this simple command just so you understand what's going on. Wget from this URL. It's going to grab the installation from this URL. And once it grabs it, we want to do a sudo bash. And it's going to run the script that's coming from that link. And we're going to hit enter. It's going to do a check, make sure we have the right installation. We do, and it's going to continue running the Ansible playbook, which is going to install everything. It's also going to grab your IP address and throw that IP address into all the important configuration files. So we're going to let this run. This is probably going to be a lot longer than the sudo apt upgrade. So again, enjoy a coffee, enjoy a beer, maybe grab another one if you already finished yours, and let this do its thing. All right, I just wanted to take a moment to stop here as this is going through. So now this is really installing all the packages, all the dependencies that you're going to need for FTS to work. It looked like it grabbed my public IP address. And while that's doing that, let's talk about the difference between public and private IP address. So we are SSHing into this device via private IP address. A private IP address is an IP address that your network is going to give every device that connects to it its own IP address. It's typically a 192.168.1.1 through 254. That's your private IP address. that IP address to go out to the internet needs to do what's called a NAT, or network address translation, which is what your router is doing. It's doing something called a NAT, where it's then going to translate that IP address to your public IP address. In my case, it's a 104 dot, and I'm not going to tell you the rest because I don't want anyone connecting to any of my servers. So I want that to remain private. It's kind of funny. It's called your public IP address, yet you don't really want it out there if you have a lot of services running that are open to the internet, in case someone tries to be malicious or has ill intent on your servers that you're running. So that's the IP address we're going to want, because that's the one you're going to hand out to all your friends, your buddies, your group on who's going to connect to your ATAK server. Now, when it comes to running a home network, you're going to have to open up some ports. And while this is running its installation, do not close out of it, because it's going to give us some very important information on some ports that we're going to have to open up on the network for this device for people to come in and out and use those services. I believe the video service runs on port 9997 to connect to your TAK server via TCP protocol. It's port 8087. To connect via SSL with a certificate, it's port 8089. We have to open up the Mumble server, the API port. There's a lot of ports we're going to have to open up, and when we're running servers on our home network, we definitely want to be very careful when it comes to those kinds of things, because you are now opening up your network to the world, to let people get into your network, because you're opening up doors to allow people into that network. What I typically like to advise people to do is, if they understand how to do this, and this is going to go way out of the scope of installing FreeTAKServer, is to put that server onto what's called a VLAN. So you're putting it on a separate network that's within your network, that if so, in any situation or case that your device gets compromised, hacked, when someone got into it with malicious intent, messed with it, whatever, and they wanted to scrub the rest of your network and try to get into other devices on your network, well, you put that device in its own network, and all they see is just that Raspberry Pi. They don't see your computer, they don't see your iPhone, they don't see your IoT devices. So that's why creating VLANs is very important. It's kind of why I got into the entire Unify system. It makes it very easy to do things like that. I relatively enjoy doing that, and that's what you're going to want to do. I will tell you, from running this server for almost a year and a half without it being turned off, no one has ever gotten into it. No one's ever attempted. If you're not a target for hacking, no one's going to try it. But it's better to be safe than sorry, especially when it comes to network security. So as we can see now, this is installing NodeRed. We're very close to the end here. Again, when this installation is done, we're not going to want to close out the screen, because it's going to give us some very important information we're going to want to jot down into like a notepad or something. So let's just let this continue, and we'll come back when it's done. Okay, and we can see at the end here that we are greeted with a lot of information that we're going to have to jot down. So we have our username for our Mumble server, we have the port for our video server, the port for our NodeRed server that's running, and this is information we're gonna want to jot down. So let's start from the top here. The UI interface port is 5000, so let's just pull out a notepad and let's just jot some of this down. So FTS TAK UI is on port 5000, and the default username and password is admin and password. Okay, cool. And I had to obviously blur out my IP address there for the Mumble server, because it's showing my public IP address, and the Mumble server port is 64738. So that's a port that we're going to have to open, obviously. And then we can see that we were also given a username and password for that as well. And the username is super user, case sensitive. And that's the password, so I'm just going to type that in. Or we can just copy and paste it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make life easier for myself and just copy and paste it. Okay, cool. And then the port for a video server is 9997, so that's another port we're going to have to open. And then for NodeRed, we do have a port as well. And that port is 1880. And it's given us a server token as well. We can just copy that. I don't believe we're going to need it, but take all the information you're going to need. And we can see that, okay, everything, we have 131 OKs, 55 things were changed, unreachable 0, failed 0, skipped 17 things, rescued 0, ignored 0. It's fair to say that the installation was successful. So now what we can try to do, if it would work, is we can now log into the web UI. We're just scrolling down here a little bit on the documentation to see what else is here. And it says log into the interface. So we can do it one of two ways. Now, if you're not doing port forwarding yet, we can do the 192.168.1. Need to remember my IP address here. 231, so .231, and it's on port 5000. And if we're greeted with that login screen, we know that it was successful. And it was. Now, I have noticed a few weird things with this installation the last couple times I ran this to test for the video. So we're going to type in the username admin, and we're going to type in our password, which is password by default, and we're going to hit login. And yes, it happened. So the FTS server is not reachable at my public IP address, which I find really strange that that's what's happening, because I'm trying to access it via my local area network, not through the WAN. I was not exactly sure what caused this the first time around when I tried it, but I'm going to go down the line and troubleshoot that right now. So I'm going to go open up my ports for everything that I need for FTS to work on my network, and we're going to come back and try this again. All right, so just to go over some of the ports that I have opened using that IP address of the Raspberry Pi, I opened up port 5000, which is for the web UI. That way you can access that one anywhere in the world. If you want to access the web UI from any machine anywhere in the world. I opened up port 9997 for the video server, port 8087 to connect your ATAK client via TCP, or port 8089 if you want to connect via SSL certificate. Port 1880 for the NodeRed. Now, I don't believe you have to open this port, but I open it. That way, if I want to play with anything on NodeRed outside my network, I can do that. Port 64738, that's for the Mumble server. And then port 19023, that's the API port. You can see I can actually labeled everything here. I don't know if that makes a difference to open that port or not, but I know it's a port that does work, so I did open that port. So we're going to go back to the login page now, and we're going to try to log in again and see what happens. And that worked. Okay, cool. So we have that working. So you have to make sure, and now that I have the troubleshooted correctly, which really should be in the documentation here, for whatever reason it's not, and hopefully FTS gets to updating this documentation with this video being given to them, is that port 19023 definitely needs to be opened, because for some reason it was trying to connect to the web UI via my public IP, yet you can see right here at the top we're on the private IP still in the local area network, and we can see everything is up. This is where things are going to get a little interesting, where I had to contact one of the devs, Slevin, on the Discord, because you'll notice the Webmap is not working. We can check mission, see if that's working. That's working. That's cool. User is working. We can create users, connect. So this is working as well. Configure, this is also working. Data package IP, obviously we're connected via locally, so it's not showing the it's not showing my public IP, and the about, which that is showing my public IP, so I'm obviously blurring that out as well. So it's cool, it's grabbed all the correct information. We're running the latest version of FTS, everything is great. But what's going on with the web map? I'm going to be honest, I think the web map is very important part of the web UI, and we're going to get that working right now. So outside of this, we're going to have to log into the NodeRed JS. So that's going to be at the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. You know what? I'm just going to copy it from this tab right here. Excuse me. And that's on port 1880. Username is admin, password is password. It's going to load. It's going to kind of show you around a little bit. Hit next, 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 next. Yep, cool. And we can already see here, flows stopped due to missing node types, world map. So there is an issue with the world map, and it has to do with the Node.js format or version that's running here. So you can see here, I was talking to Slevin before making this video that I was trying to troubleshoot this and I couldn't figure it out. And it's that because it is the wrong version of Node.js that's running, but running the whole NodeRed install command from his instructions fixes that. And then you have to go back into NodeRed, manually install the world map, and rerun the flows. So let's do that because I have that pulled up right here. So that's the command you're going to want to type in. Yes. Yes. And it looks like it's going to run through a checklist real quick. Okay, it looks like I lost connection, so that means it's definitely updating the NodeRed. Okay, let's just take a look and see what happened. I'm going to refresh our NodeRed screen. If that doesn't work, it's probably because NodeRed is not up and running, and it looks like it's probably not. I have a list of commands here to get it up and running, so we want to enable the NodeRed service here. So we're just going to, again, copy paste. Let's just clear all this. So sudo system control enable NodeRed. Let's also start NodeRed as a service. Looks like that's good. Now let's check if NodeRed status is up. And it's active and running. And there we go. Now we're back. So we're now on the newest version of NodeRed here. We're just clicking next blindly on everything. And again, we still have the world map issues. So we're going to click close. We're going to go to FTH world map, and we're going to try to see if we can get this world map installed. So world map. And it looks like that was our fix. That's amazing. Awesome. Now there is some more things we have to do to configure the world map here, as well as the video checker. We're going to have to go under certain things and change our IP address to our public IP address. So after you get your public IP address, come to FTH config and double click on that. And under FTH FTS URL, you're going to replace that with your public IP address and hit done. When you're done, you're going to click on deploy. Now we should be done with Node.js. We're going to go back over to the web UI. We're going to hit refresh, and the map is working. That's amazing. So now, why don't we go a little bit outside the scope of this installation here, and let's just create a user. Well, no, we'll leave the user. Why don't we actually start connecting some clients here? Now, remember, we did the port forwarding, so I want to test this using my public IP address. So I'm going to open up WinTAK. I want to make sure this is working externally, leaving the network and coming back in. We want to make sure that it's working that way and not locally. So don't use the 192.168. You're going to want to use your public IP address and make sure that's working. I also have my ATAK phone sitting right next to me. So when both clients connect, we should be able to see each other. Okay, so I'm now going to manage my server connection, change this IP address, and it should connect. and it looks like it has. I do live in Florida, so I'm just going to put a little check mark of where I am in Florida. And it's kind of close enough. Not really where I am, but cool. So we're connected, and we should see that connection as well here in the web UI. And we do. We see one client is connected. World map. You sometimes will see the clients come up on here. Sometimes it's a little wonky. And now I'm going to actually connect to this server using my ATAK phone and type in my IP address. And we can see that I did pop up on here. So we are connected. And this is through the public IP address, not the private IP address. While these devices are on the same network, we actually are in. You can actually see a lot of my icons are starting to pop up a little bit, which is pretty cool. We can go back to the web UI over here, and we can see that 2 clients are now connected. Let's see if anything shows up on Webmap. Doesn't seem like anything is. Sometimes it does. Let's create a SSL certificate for users. So we're going to add some users here. So we're going to just call this user. We're going to say certs are true. They're part of group 2. Token is password, and password is password. Device type would be mobile for this one. And then we are going to add another one for a WinTAK user. The group is 2. Certs are true. Password and password. And this is for WinTAK. So we're going to hit submit on that one as well. Go to mission. We want to uncheck that these are private, and it's refresh that. So now if I go over here and I want to go to data package, I want to download it from my server. It looks like we are actually having some issues. Or let's just go back here. I believe there's one more port we might actually have to connect. Yep. I apologize. So port 8080 for data packages is also got to be forwarded. So we're going to come over here and we're just going to go to ATAK data packages. And we're going to collect that IP address again, forward to IP, and it's port 8080. 8080. Again, if there's no port forwarding, of course I can't access those data packages. Now that those ports are forwarded, let's just double check here that they are available. I did get rid of the user for the mobile, but that's okay. So we're going to come back over here, collect from data packages, and there it is. So we're going to hit OK. It's downloaded that data package. Go to manage connections. We can see the FreeTAKServer 8089, so I can uncheck this one. And now we're connected via SSL through a certification. Now let's connect one that is a mobile client, because we did one for a WinTAK client. So we're going to come back, user. Let's just delete this one and create another one again. Call it user. Group is 2. Token is password. Password is password. Certs are true. And device is mobile. We're going to hit submit on that. Cool. So if we come to mission, we should be able to see it. And there it is. We made it not private. Now if I go on my ATAK phone and I connect to get from the databases from this server, I see it right there for users. I'm going to click it and I'm going to download it. I disconnected and I now reconnected via SSL. Yep, I'm on port 8089. Nope, that's a lie. So this is an issue I have noticed for some reason with the mobile certifications, and I wish I could show this to you, but I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this yourselves. When you download the data package via the mobile client, actually I just realized it happened over here as well. It got the private IP address, not the public IP address. I am unsure exactly why this happens. Maybe we can try to troubleshoot that later on in this video, but let's just change that real quick. So we're gonna grab the public IP address and change those, connect them, and now it's connected, and now they're connected through the public IP address over the web, not internally to my network. I'm also going to fix that on my ATAK client, because my ATAK client did the same thing, trying to grab those certifications. I don't know why it did that, but again, we're going to figure that out together, because this is a Raspberry Pi installation, and we want to get the Raspberry Pi completely up and running. So I'm going to click done. Okay, and now I'm connected via SSL on port 8089 using that certificate that we created. Let's just do a quick message. I do see a Texaco that popped up on my map on my ATAK client. That client is being shown as being online. I'm going to send it a Roger, and it did receive it. Now let's set up tag ICU. This would also work, of course, streaming with UAS tool. So I'm going to go to tag ICU, and I'm going to go to its settings from the hamburger switch on the top right. Again, I'm on an Android device. I'm not using ATAK here. And I'm going to go to settings, broadcast preferences, and I'm going to go to where the IP address is for this server. I have to refresh myself with my own public IP address, and it looks like it doesn't want to broadcast, which I find kind of interesting. Now, why is that? Again, this goes into the entire installation of this whole thing, which, I mean this with all respect, is kind of all over the place. Now, this is using RTSP Simple Server, which is made by Media MTX. We are going to click on that. So I do remember port 8554, also a port that needed to be used, so I am going to also port forward that as well. Port 8554, port 8554. I'm going to do it to this client address, and this is going to be RTSP as well. Add entry. So why the 9997's there? Because I did just see that port inside of tag ICU, and I do remember that having to do with something with video broadcasting using the RTSP server. And let's see if we can get that. Port 8554. Is that correct? 8554. Yes. So I just put that into my ATAK phone. It is now broadcasting. And let's go to WinTAK and see if we can see a broadcast happening. I did have to just click on video player, and you can see that this call sign right here, there is a video currently streaming, and there I am. We are streaming, and that's working. So it looks like we have ATAK up and running, which is pretty good. I'm very pleased with this outcome. Webmap, again, used to usually show what's going on over here. Let's see if we can figure out why that's not happening. So usually, first of all, let's take a look at the video checker right here, and let's just see what's going on. So connect to RTSP server. It's getting from this path, which is interesting because we're not using that port almost at all. Just looking in here to see if there's an 8554 type of port it's looking for. Right here. So FreeTAK Hub, FreeTAKServer stream port is on port 8554. The API port for video is port 9997. Now 9997 wasn't working, but port 8554 was. So why that's happening, I really can't give an answer to that. Only the FTS team can. Then again, the FTS team is using the Media MTX RTSP simple server, so it's probably not on their end on why that's a thing, but put it input port 8554 when it comes to the video streaming, both for UAS tool and for TAK ICU. That seems to be doing the trick. Why port 997 is even relevant here, I have no idea. I bet if I even took down the port 9997 port forwarding, which actually I'm just going to do it just for the shits and giggles of it, we're just going to remove it. I'm going to come back to ATAK. I'm going to open up my ATAK client here. I'm going to go to TAK ICU, and I'm going to broadcast video. I'm going to reconnect, and obviously we're connected again. So it's obviously a little slow as it first starts, but as you can see, we're doing it again, and I removed the port 9997 port forwarding. So why that's there, I don't know. It's 8554. So for video streaming, 8554. Hopefully this gets updated to the documentation so we can stop that streaming. So guys, we can conclude it here as to what's going on as far as setting up a FreeTAKServer on a Raspberry Pi with everything running, video server, Mumble server. I have not tried the Mumble server, but you can try it. This video has gone a little long, and we should be okay. Under the FTS server here, under the Webmap, I am noticing that there is nothing there, so we're gonna put that IP address in there, the IP address that is the public IP address. And we're going to put it on port 8087. Going to redeploy it. It's got a connection. This could be why the map wasn't working, and if that's why the map wasn't working, well, then I don't know. That needs to get fixed. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but it just says now it has a connection. Things might start coming in as things come in. I'm not exactly sure. I think I can actually drop a point. I'm gonna drop it right here in the middle of Lake Okeechobee. We'll just call it TAK. Send it. Not really hearing anything. Oh yeah, and here's where you can change the map. So I'm not exactly sure why we're not getting anything that's showing up on here. Usually, like I said, we do. Let me drop a point somewhere here in the middle of Lake Okeechobee and see if that shows up on the map here. Oh, look at that. Okay, so things are starting to show up. It's slowing up. It's showing up slowly but surely. I remember the first time I set up the web UI, the web map, things were starting to show up slowly and surely. But congratulations, guys! You have FreeTAKServer with video streaming, with Mumble server, with DWeb UI, all running on your Raspberry Pi. But I hope this really helps narrow down a lot of the problems that you guys were having. I'm glad we went through some issues here so that way we can troubleshoot them, and hopefully the FTS team will actually update a lot of those troubleshooting issues when it comes to the installation, because we did have to do some things after the installation to make everything work, but everything is working and I am very pleased with this outcome. FreeTAKServer is doing a really good job, guys. Don't forget they're doing a lot of this on their own free time. They're not getting paid to do this whatsoever, and they're giving us a pretty awesome tool here to be using ATAK. So thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to the FTS team and show them their support. Join their Discord if you have any more questions in there. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this got you up and running with your Raspberry Pi. I'm glad we went through some issues. So if when you got, oh, look at that, look, things are starting to slowly pop up and start to send out and broadcast over to the server, to the web UI here, which is pretty neat. But again, I'm glad we went through some issues, so that way when you guys go through those issues, you watch the troubleshooting happen in real time, so you guys don't have to comment down below on how to fix it. Well, thanks, guys. for watching, and head over to the Real Ghost channel if you want to learn more about ATAK and all the other cool things you can do outside of setting up a server. So thanks for watching.